microphone, so I'm going to have to speak a little louder so you can hear me. For those of you who don't know me, Steve Elric, I'm the town manager. I'd like to thank you all for coming. This has been a project going on for quite a few years, but come to a very exciting point. I want to give you some quick numbers. The town has been fortunate enough to get a total of $1.69 million in EPA funding for all of this going on here. And Mr. Kehaya, who will speak to you, has put in about by the time we're done, it'll be about $360,000 in matching funds. So it's quite a good investment here for the town and for him. It's been actually, I think it's been a shorter process, and seeing buildings coming down and things starting to happen. I think you'll be pretty excited about what you see today. I'd like to thank the Vision Berwick Group, who has done a tremendous amount of legwork to get us to this point. Along with Southern Maine Planning, Paul's here tonight from there, who has been good about putting up some money when we needed it. They have been part of the funding mechanism we've had. And also the Board of Selectmen and citizens who have been very supportive and very curious about what we're doing and how we're getting there. At this time, I'm going to introduce you to Mark Kehaya, who is the owner, president of Fund of Jupiter, and his wife Hannah is here tonight with him as well, if you haven't had a chance to meet her. So he'll walk you through all that's going on, and I think you'll be pleased. Here you go.
First of all, I'd like to reiterate the thanks that Steve and all people who we mentioned. Without the whole community's engagement in this project, we wouldn't be as far along as we are. We've had a tremendous amount of help from Weston Sampson and Rachel has done a tremendous amount of work to get the project where it is. Steve and his team have done a huge amount of work. All the selectmen have. And we've had numerous meetings so far. We continuously have meetings. And without the whole sort of engagement process that has happened, the Vision Berwick team, etc., we wouldn't be where we are. So first of all, I'd like to thank all of them for where we are. So just very quickly, I just want to talk about some of the community feedback that we have received through the Vision Berwick group, and how we've tried to build it into the plan. We want to talk a little bit about the economic studies that have happened. I don't know how many of you are familiar with them. They're also all available on the website, the town's website, under the business and then economic development. There's some of these economic studies available. And then we'll go into some of the plans and where we are. And hopefully that will explain a lot of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing, or why we're doing what we're trying to do. So, talk quickly about the community feedback. So what we have heard about this whole process and to come out in all discussions is one of the number one priorities, besides having a very vibrant downtown, is to, as part of that vibrant downtown, to have an area where we have a public commons, a green space, potentially also a paved space where we can do food trucks and a farmer's market in the summertime, and to kind of create that community gathering space in the downtown. The other part that we've heard is that Berwick doesn't have a main street like a lot of downtowns have, and how can we create a main street for Berwick? Connecting the river to your public path and the greenway and the back of the town has been also a key element of a lot of the envisioning exercises that you have done as a community, and we've tried to sort of incorporate a lot of that into the plans. And also, I think what's important is in order to create a vibrant downtown today, you have to create a downtown that has both living opportunities as well as business opportunities. So people, to really create that sort of live, work space that people are looking for right now. So that's something else that we've sort of, I think, seen in a lot of the feedback from you, and that's also something that we're trying to achieve with the plan. Great. Some of the feasibility studies on the commercial side, I think we've heard a lot about the brewery, brew pubs. We we have the water supply, we have water treatment. So there's a huge amount of interest that both, I think, from a commercial viability standpoint, as well as from a community standpoint, we've heard. And there's some, as part of the economic study, some full service restaurants and some limited service restaurant capabilities here to be supported, medical offices, health club. There's a long list of other things that are as part of that, as part of the economic study. I really, again, I encourage you to all to read it. There's also, I think, a need for some potentially light industrial / craft manufacturing capabilities, some sort of studios of where people can create economic activity. And lastly, what you will see in the economic study is the need for office space right now is not very big, but hopefully we can create sort of a need for office space, because that really is what anchors a downtown of any community, is that people can work there either in actually in shops, in offices, and there's sort of a mutual support that happens. People from the offices need to go and have lunch, they need to go shopping, and it's nice that they can do it all together. In terms of residential demand, the economic plan that was put together said there's between 50 and 100 demand of between 50 and 100 units of market rate housing. That is described on a rental base of about $1.40 to $1.70 per square foot. The study also said there's room for 4 to 8 townhomes that can be for owner occupancy, between 60 and 95 senior apartment living, i.e. 55 plus, age-limited but independent living. And then there's some space for workforce housing as well. So that's kind of, when you look at the economic study, that's kind of what people have said, what consultants have come back to us in terms of what is feasible for Berwick at this stage. So, any development is limited by the rental rates, quite frankly. How much capital can you put into a project vis-a-vis what the rental rates are, right? A couple of things, and you guys know this better than I do, but as Berwick, as a town, we compete against Somersworth and we compete against New Hampshire, and the tax rates in Somersworth and New Hampshire are more advantageous for businesses to some extent, as well as for individuals. So whatever we do, we have to be competitive with those businesses. And that in particular means also if you look at your retail possibilities here, you have to actually look at the retail possibilities that really are tailored more to where you don't have a sales tax in Maine, so that disadvantage goes away. The other thing is, we've had some development partners that we've talked to, etc. They say, oh, it's very easy, we'll get a bunch of big national companies to come in here, like CVS Pharmacy, like Dunkin' Donuts, etc. And we've got all these fantastic relationships, we're going to bring these guys in. And what they found as part of that process, though, is we don't have the demographics here in Berwick to attract big national chains at the moment. So that means that from a sort of commercial rental standpoint, we're in that $7 to $8 a square foot. Maybe we get $9 a square foot from a retail standpoint. Offices maybe in that 10 to 12 range, and residentials, the study said between $1.40 and $1.70, okay, per square foot. So that tells you a little bit where we are limited and how much new construction we can do versus not. For new construction, you need to be in a retail environment $12 to $15 a square foot for new construction. Okay, so that's the economic reality that we're dealing with. And one of the things as a result of that we've done, one of the decisions has been to keep some of the buildings that have been sound, to keep them and to redevelop them rather than to tear them down and start fresh. Yeah. So where do we stand? We've demolished those buildings that are going to be demolished on the site. On the sort of main site, the site has been demolished. The buildings that we have left standing structurally, we're sound, we're sound structure. The cost of taking them down would have actually prohibited redevelopment. By the time we paid to take those down and put new buildings on them, you couldn't make the numbers work with rental rates. So what we have done is we've kept the buildings that are sound. We will show you sort of that we believe that we can make the outsides of these buildings look completely differently, so they become buildings that we're actually proud of and don't look the way they're looking right now. So we've kept those, and we have a draft concept plan that we're going to share with you tonight about where we think this can go. Now, I want to emphasize the word draft as we speak. We do not at this stage have any major tenants signed up, and a lot of this will be based on actually getting the tenants to say yes, this is something that makes sense or not. And there might be a lot of changes. So if we come back with some changes to this plan, don't say, oh, 6 months ago you said it was going to be this. There is a big likelihood that it's going to be different from what we're presenting tonight. And we also want your feedback. We actually want your feedback, and your feedback might say, hey, you guys are going completely down the wrong direction, and we have to then all look at it together and see how can we adjust. So, again, emphasis on draft. So what do we hope to achieve? We want to make Berwick and the downtown of Berwick a very vibrant community where we can attract young people who want to live here. Okay? As part of that, right now, if you look at all the studies, that means you want a really vibrant live-work environment. Okay? Where people can live, they can work, they can get around easily. And we want to create spaces for small niche businesses that can develop and hopefully develop into bigger businesses. Okay? If we're successful, in my view, we create 200 permanent jobs in the downtown area. I mean, that's my personal definition of success. That you have enough space and enough interest that you can actually create a lot of downtown jobs, which then make everything work. Public green spaces. We have a nice public green space, I think, as part of this plan. Also, we have a paved area which can be used either for parking or for other events like a farmer's market, etc. during the week. And we want space for breweries, and really creating that connection between the river and the walking path and the greenways that we have. So that's what we're trying to achieve with this plan. So if you look at the plan, I think quite a few of it have it in front of you. We have kept these buildings here. These are the existing buildings, and we will show you in a second some markups of those buildings. We put some residential space in here, and some mixed-use space, and then more residential in the back. We're trying to create the connection from the river to the greenways in two different ways. First of all, through a big downtown square, and then funneling it on either side and creating a walking path that goes around, and through a bike path that goes around the outside of the space, so that we separate bikes and pedestrians. So we created the big downstairs outdoor green space, and a parking lot here that can also be converted into a festival area as well, where you can have a food truck Thursdays, you can have a farmer's market, etc., that can come in there on firm footings so that the foundation can support it. The idea here with this building here is to create ideally a brewery in here. We have some office space potentially on the second floor of that building, and hopefully we can bring some retail into the bottom floor there. Office on the top floor here and some retail on the bottom, and then the old prime office space will hopefully be offices. And then we have residential around it, residential, and then the back more residential. So you get this sort of leveraging effect, commercial, light industrial use, with growing employment, which helps you support more people. As more people move into the place, it helps the retail develop and support itself. So I think at this stage we can actually do some flying? Sure. Or should we do the So if you look at this is the way it looks sort of from town hall coming through with some residential space and then the commercial space behind it. The nice green space. We have a structure here to break up the parking lot from the street. We're trying to do parallel parking only on the street to keep the street relatively narrow and not have a major runway in the middle of the downtown. We're trying to create the right level of height here. With Gamble and Associates is the ones who've done this work for us. So you get a sense of the elevations here. I'm glad James is driving this along. Go to the, can you go back on the other side of Wilson's Street up there? That gives you a little bit of a sense of what we're trying to achieve downtown. Maybe we go to some of the Tom House ones as well. So this is sort of what the big square building. You see, this is sort of the side. This would be the view from School Street. Okay, where it's renovated, and it would actually take, as you can see, quite a bit of the facade down here and replace it with office on top. Again, retail at the bottom, and ideally a food club on this end of it. And then above it, we think you can put a deck with potentially some nice deck area as well. You look at that. Now this is now the other side. So this is almost the view. If you're looking from the windows of the town hall here out at those buildings. Okay. So the old elevator shaft is here. Again, this is a two-story piece of the structure here. Retail on the bottom and office on top. And that sort of look of slightly modern, but sort of, maintain some industrial feel of the site as well. And then this is what we lovingly refer to the L-shaped building, which is a building right there. Looking at it, so you're looking at it sort of from the green town area.
Committee, I just wanted to say we're going to have an activity later that will, or like right after this, where we can write down a lot of like comments and things that we love and things that we don't love. So just to clarify on your question, maybe just at this point in time, some clarifying questions that help us understand where we're at right now versus like it's a long comment.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, my name is Jeremy Haskell. Looking at this plan, there's a lot of green space, a lot of bushes, trees, etc. Upkeep associated with those are going to be very expensive for the town. So I'm curious, you noted all the different price per square foot. Will the businesses be directly supplementing the upkeep for all of the cost of the additional green space, or will that fall on the town and town maintenance to perform that upkeep?
gotten on maintaining the green spaces is not that high. Okay, so that right now is, you know, in the whole list of things, maintenance of the green space was not that high. Okay, if we go way over the top in terms of planting of the green spaces, etc., it can become a lot more expensive. Okay, but right now, I mean, the idea is this is a green space where people can gather and meet, etc. This could be mainly grass, you know, and you know, the sort of, you know, estimated maintenance on that we've received, you know, some rough figures on. Yeah, isn't that right?
My name.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know me, I'm Tom Wright. I'm chairman of the Board of Selectmen. And, you know, this is something that we've been talking about for a while, about the maintenance and everything. The town as itself has been looking to increase our green space. I don't feel that doing trees and shrubs and plantings and things is a detrimental thing to the town. I think it's a benefit for the town. I think this is something that improves the quality of life in town, makes it more attractive so more people will come to town. And I'm not afraid of the maintenance of it. It's running the lawnmowers over it, you know, raking up weeds. I'm not afraid of that. And that's to say that the property that comes to the town is obviously some of the property is going to be, you know, held in private hands, and the maintenance on those parcels will be for them to take care of. But from my perspective is putting more trees downtown, putting more green space downtown is a plus for the town, and I'm not worried about that cost.
My name is David Daviker. One thing was, do you have any idea off the top of your head, rough estimate of what will be allotted for residential square foot and business square foot?
We have, I think right now, about 200 units of residential residences planned at the, you know, ranging from 600 square feet to 1,000 square feet. So I actually off the top of my head can't give you the percentages.
Okay.
But it's about 200 units of residential that we think can be born based on the economic studies.
Yeah.
Now, those won't all happen at once. That will happen, you know, you have to go, we'll build the first one and there's going to be some absorption of that, and then the next one is going to be built, etc. So, but we can get back quick. You know those numbers?
On my computer.
Okay.
And then just one other quick question. Has there been like huge in-depth discussion about the way the traffic's going to go once all this comes to play?
Well, we're actually we had a meeting today to get hopefully some grant money to do a traffic study, and then figure out how can the traffic, make sure that the traffic flows the best it possibly can.
Very good.
Because, I mean, right now, I think you live here, so you know better. But you go back to there's already, I mean, you know, right now there's already a problem right here. And there's a little bit of a problem right here, and there's some problems back in there. So, you know, we're completely aware of it. You know, everybody's aware of it. We're trying to figure out how to solve that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Don Young. I'd like to clarify, you said intending to create 200 units of housing.
That's about right, yeah. That's what that
And you would like to have 200 young people move into Berwick and work in downtown. But earlier in the presentation, you showed that so many units would be for people over 55, so many would be for rental, and some would be what they call workforce housing. How can you present housing for 200 people, young people, which would be a great thing to move into town, but they can't afford the housing on a McDonald's salary. If they live here, they'll be working in Boston or Portland or Portsmouth.
Well, I mean, I think some of the people that we're talking about who we're looking at potentially bringing businesses in would be paying a higher salary. Okay? Of the 200 housing units that we talked about, right? You're absolutely right. Not all of those are going to be new young people moving in here. Okay? If you think about it, the age-limited housing that we talked about, in which there seems to be a demand of, I think it was between 65 and 100 that they had come up with as part of the economic plan, right? Would be part of that 200. Okay, so in terms of the housing stock, now that will, be obviously people who already live here, who've expressed an interest in, hey, I want to downsize, etc. It will also be some new people who are moving into the area. So I think if you look at creating 200, in an ideal world, 200 jobs, again, those are not all going to be jobs for young people. Okay? We want to create a downtown which I think attracts young people, has a vibrancy to it. Okay? Again, according to the economic study, you're talking between 50 and 100 market rate of housing only. So not all 200 units of that would be people who can afford the higher rent. So you have to really take that 200 units, you're going to divide it into different pieces, and then you can try and absorb that over a period of time. Does that answer the question?
Well,
I'd like to make a point that should be well explained to the town, and first I'd like to commend you and your family for coming here and doing this for us, because it was really needed. I'm very glad you're here. The point I'd like to make is, right now, that site is on paper only a 7-lot subdivision, which was planned out strictly for brownfields money application, and it was successful. We were able to get, over the last 3 years, the $1.6+ million that have gone into that site now. That 7-lot plan will be tossed away fairly soon for another plan that reflects what we're talking about tonight. And it has to be a planning board process of conditional uses and things like that. So there will be a lot of time for public input, negotiating who pays for what, and things of that nature. So the town will have a say, and the developers will have a say on, through their application on what happens here. So I think this is just a new beginning, is the way I see it. And my guess is it'll take several years before it's built out, and I'm excited to see it coming. So, thank you.
Thank you both.
I'm just wondering if you plan on putting these units in, will you be doing subsidized housing with Section 8?
Right now we're looking at workforce housing, and not which is where you get some subsidies from the state, but it's not Section 8. But again, some of this would all depend. We haven't gotten to that level of detail yet. We've looked at the economic plan that Cameron Associates put together. It's on the website again, and we're sort of looking at that, and saying, can we put some of that, some of the workforce housing in, which is 80% of median income, sort of thing.
It's what?
It's at 80% of the median income of the town. The workforce housing.
Is what?
And it's for people who have 80% of the median income of the town.
Okay. So that's basically workforce housing.
Parking is the biggest headache, okay? Let me just be completely frank. We have a real problem figuring out parking, okay? Because what we're looking at is doing some parking, on the ground floor of these buildings, at the residential, so that you'll have some ground floor parking. You're going to have that, otherwise we're not going to be able to get enough parking in. We will have parallel parking right now on the street. And then we have, we're doing parking at the back of these buildings wherever we possibly can, as much as possible. And then we have parking here, parking here. Just to give you a sense, I know people are always concerned when they see the parking lot. This parking lot is about 60 spaces, okay, which is not that big actually. If you go to the Summerswood Plaza, I think this is about 1/5 of the size of the parking space in Summerswood Plaza. So there is parking. It's much smaller than you see in many places. Most developers will tell you this is not enough parking. Okay, and that's my concern. Okay, so we've tried to create as efficient of parking spaces that we possibly can. We're hoping that this becomes much more of a walking community, but we've tried to, wherever we sort of have been able to do, is to create some parking spaces, as well as, at the same time, create a big enough space in some areas where you can actually have some events on a paved surface that take place. Okay? So that if you're in the spring, you can actually have, and you have a nice day, you can actually have a farmer's market on a paved surface somewhere. So we're trying to balance all of these things. If this becomes incredibly successful, we probably don't have enough parking, and you eventually have to probably build a parking deck, quite frankly. So, but it's sort of, the project can't afford a parking deck until it gets successful. So this, yeah.
I was just going to add the comment regarding Jennifer Murphy-Allen with Envision Berwick. That a lot of times the parking is a perception problem too, and then it relies upon being away from it. And that's where you can find the parking. And then again, the living, walking community aspect. My concern would be the ratio of parking to the size of our development. It's a bit of a market basket, but this parking in relation to the rest of the site, I don't want to see too much parking on.
I agree. If you look at the town ordinances on parking right now, I think we have had put in 400 parking spaces. It was something like that. We had one developer who did that for us. He said, he couldn't park. You could get close to parking. So we're way down on that. But the flip side is, as a retailer, you want to be in a place where your customers can actually park. So there's this sort of real give and take of all this. If we have too much parking space, I would love to go in and actually put some more buildings. But, I mean, it's sort of,
That Summerswood parking space that you just talked about,
yeah.
they just had Sherelle the other day, and they found that they want to put a green space in the middle of it.
Which is terrific.
I'm just saying that big parking space you're talking about is going to be changed to a green space.
Yeah, but that's also significantly bigger than what we have. So yeah, trust me, parking is I didn't have gray hair before the parking problem. It's an issue, right? I mean, it's a major issue.
So I was just mentioning also that we're trying to encourage parking out there. It has nothing to do with what we're developing, but their visibility and actual sidewalks on some of the roads that I live close enough in now and I have children. And I would like to bring them down here so I can go down here. But no, because there's no sidewalks, I'm going to drive my car down the road. So just a consideration for the future. And a question just about the current buildings that are still standing. Were they already made safe in the funding that was received with EPA, or do they still have to be like the ground grant or those who received?
There's no contamination issues with But there's a couple of places where there's some asbestos still in the flashing we have to take care of. But in general, those buildings are in good shape. Now don't walk through them because there's a lot of nails and they're sort of sticking out, etc. Yeah. But from a sort of structural standpoint, etc. they're in good shape. Any other questions?
Mark,
Yeah.
Tammy Cole. I know it's off of your map out there, but the building that you have that's across.
Blue side building, yeah.
Yeah, what's going there? What's the proposal for that?
That's also residential.
Residential?
Yeah. It comes down, becomes residential.
What building would you put up first, in the first quarter?
First quarter is probably going to be slightly more infrastructure, but then I think either residential or residential while they're doing some renovations.
I'm just curious with the additional infrastructure that's going in, actually, what additional infrastructure is going on now for other services that will have to be there, like to support fire, DPW, things like that. So what additional planning is being done now to support what people
So just for fire, I'm sure some of you know already, some of you voted for it. We're in the planning process and design process of a brand new fire station. We want to get it out of that old crappy building. We have a Port City Architecture has been contracted. We do quite a few different groups. They walked the site last Wednesday, 3 different locations. One up on Pine Hill that we were looking at. I don't think it's going to work. I'll wait until the engineers give us the data. Another one is up on Cemetery Road, right across from the cemetery. That's the parcel that we looked at, which is about 6.5 acres. And we looked at the parcel down here by the Estabrook School. So the engineers came through with the committee members and some of the selectmen, and they're going to evaluate it and give us a spreadsheet and make their recommendations, because we can't start design until we have a site. So that's where we're going with that. We have 2 new trucks on order. I keep getting pictures of them as they're being built. So we're not, I don't think we're expanding the size of the fire department, but we're improving the building, and we're on 24/7 schedule right now. We have 4 full-time firefighters and the chief. So we'll look at that as we go. We'll have enough room in that building to grow. Public Works, you don't have enough people already. So you have 4 full-time people that manage all the roads, but money being where it is, we haven't added anybody, and we don't plan on with as many part-time people as we can. But to put a full-time person on, it's real expensive. But looking down the road, I can, as a manager, I'll make recommendations to the board that we probably should be adding more people so we can stay on top of all the work that needs to be done. Police, I think we're in good shape with police. They do a good job with the members that we have. We just added a new person last year. We lost somebody to another department. We are really paying quite a bit of attention to that whole what we need to do here. Again, what we said earlier, we don't know what we're going to do green space. That's something that Mark and the Board of Selectmen have to talk about. What's the trade-off going to be? Because we don't want to have to spend a lot of time on green space, but like Tommy said, if it's just mowing grass, that's pretty minor. We can handle that without any problem. So we don't do landscaping. He does. So we have a big infrastructure here throughout the whole town that needs a lot of attention. So we're looking at it all.
Percentage green space is rendered in that rendering?
I think we're 26–27%.
Could the parking density requirements be met with the elimination of the green space?
I mean, I think we've just about talked to everybody here in this space, and I know the town really wants some green space. So, you know, it's a... I think we've tried to that balance of parking, being efficient in the parking by having enough of the size of the parking lot, the efficiency versus green space.
The flyer you showed us looked really nice in seeing the different facades of how the new buildings are going to look. My question
those were on the existing buildings, by the way. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
My question is utilities-wise. Will it be underground utilities, underground power, or will we have power poles like we see out the windows here, continuing to run through downtown?
Well, I can't address what the town's going to do on which is not part of the project, obviously. But as part of the form-based codes that I think you guys are all voting on in November, it has to be underground.
I can address the town stuff. Since I've been here, there's been discussion, quite a bit of discussion about putting everything underground. And Frank Underwood and myself and some other members from the Envision Berwick group have been in contact with CNP. They've actually given us a number of what the cost could be. The only road that will not be able to change and put the ground wire in the ground is Wilson Street. I guess that's a main fee for everything else. But we're looking at $800 to $1 million to do all of that in this section. But it's a goal that we have. Depends on funding, depends on TIF, but we have the TIF funding and things like that. But we're hoping that that's going to be the case.
But all new construction outside of the major wires will be underground for what correct?
Yes. I just want to reiterate what Steve has said. Is, for the last 5 years, the Envision Berwick people, the town planners, everybody, we've been looking at eliminating all the poles out here. And one of the ways we hope to fund that is we created a tax increment finance district down here where we can recapture some of the money that's coming into it, and we can use that for infrastructure. So we may not be able to do anything out here on the main street right away, but in 4 or 5 years, we should have more money put into that account that we can start using that and take that money to do those improvements. Because the last thing we want is to have beautiful streets with all the wires over it and not make the mistake that Somersworth did with doing their downtown and having all the wires coming down through the middle of it. We want a nice clean look. We want to be able to look at the buildings and not the poles and wires.
No more questions? Going once? Done?
So we just wanted to be able to capture everyone's thoughts tonight. So, yeah, we just wanted to be able to capture everyone's thoughts tonight. So if on the pages in front of you, you can just, there's 2 different columns. One for stuff that you loved about this plan, the other one for stuff that you would change or that you didn't love about the plan. There's 2 sticker dots that you should have gotten when you first come in. If you didn't, I'll come around and give them out. But you can put those just straight on the map in areas according to, it's pink for the things that you loved and orange for the things that you didn't love. And then please write down if you had any questions that you were shy about asking tonight, please write them down in the bottom of that section. Or even if you already asked the question, feel free to write that down again. So we'll give you about 15 minutes to talk amongst yourselves and make some notes, and then we'll check back in and just have a share out with the major things that people came to on the trips.
Okay. I'd say please grab some food. We have plenty of food. We can't take it home. So part of this feedback and part of this community engagement is pretty huge because come June, we'll be doing another round of ordinance updates. And ultimately, your feedback, we're going to compile it and use this to advance the dialogue for the next round of ordinance changes. Because honestly, the community engagement sets a tone for how we're directed, and ultimately that's how the ordinances are created. So have fun.
Yeah, we'll check back in like